Good evening, and welcome again to Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. And tonight we'll be talking about a subject that probably no one wants to hear much about, but everyone should hear something about, and that is property fraud. Our guests tonight are from the Recorder of Deeds Office for Cook County Recorder of Deeds, Karen Yarbrough, and Director of Security, Tim Curry. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Well, before we even get started, I know you guys have prepared a short public service video that explains something of the problem. So why don't we take a look at that, and then we'll come back and talk about what we've just seen. So if we can roll that video.
Honey, Arizona was great for a few months, but it's good to be home.
Amen to that.
This couple has just returned from a 6-month vacation to find out that someone else is not only in their home, but claims to own their home.
Did you leave the gate open?
No, I didn't. That's strange.
Open.
Key won't work.
Yes, may I help you?
Who are you?
Who am I? Who are you?
We live here.
No, you don't. I live here. I just bought this house.
What are you trying to do?
What's this all about?
I'm calling the police.
Can you believe this? The police have been called, but only a judge can help. The Office of the Recorder of Deeds maintains public records of land transactions and other important documents. The Recorder's Office offers a free property fraud alert program that notifies you, the owner, whenever a document is recorded against a property that you own. Now, this couple is in the process of selling a home, but the bank just called to tell them that there's a problem.
This deed says we have 3 loans with ABC Mortgage.
That's not true. How did this happen?
This woman, she just lost a loved one. As executor of the estate, her grief is compounded. Selling the house won't be as easy as she hoped because the title is cloudy.
You're telling me my mom's house is owned by Petsar people too? I don't understand how this happened. I know my mom paid off the house years ago.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Neely, Treasurer of the City of Chicago. Just like the families in this video, someone illegally took ownership of my home without me even knowing. All they had to do was file a fraudulent document with the Cook County Recorder of Deeds. It took a lawyer, time, and money, lots of money, to clear my title and reestablish my ownership. If I had been trying to sell or refinance my home, that false claim of ownership would have delayed or derailed the transaction, and that would have cost me even more. Property fraud happened to me, the Treasurer of the City of Chicago, and it can just as easily happen to you.
Let's take a look at a text message exchange between a friend and someone who attempted to refinance their home. The Property Fraud Alert Program is designed to give you peace of mind about ownership of your property and the property of loved ones. Once a property is registered, you will receive a phone call or email anytime a document is recorded against your property. To get started, you will need your property index number or your PIN, which is the 14-digit number on your property tax bill. Next, go online and enter cookrecorder.com. Select the Property Fraud Alert icon on the home page. Continue to the next screen to read through and accept the terms of use. On the next screen, enter the information about your property and choose how you want to receive your alert. Repeat the steps to register additional properties you own. Once you've completed all the steps to register your property online, you will receive a confirmation of your registration. There's also a toll-free number to sign up by phone. That's it. You're done.
Karen, you're already introducing yourself.
I am.
There you go. I think I recognize one of those actors on that video
We
as
had
well.
some great actors. Certainly, some of our employees at the recorder's office, and yours
Some
truly.
of our friends, yes.
Yes.
So this is a real problem, and I know that since you took office, you've been looking at this now, actually since before when you were campaigning, you've been looking at this for some time. So are we making any progress? Is it still a problem? How deep does it go?
Well, it's still a problem, but let me answer your first question. Yes, we're making lots of progress. We've done outreaches throughout Cook County, over 100 outreaches, and we're taking this message to Cook County residents so that they can understand, homeowners need to know, and we're here to tell them. And, the fact that this is free, this property fraud alert, it will help them. So we've learned a lot. We've learned who does this. We've learned that what we needed to do in our own office to make sure that people were paying attention, especially our employees. We passed 3 bills in Springfield that would give us additional tools to help us, because I am not empowered to make anybody do anything. I'm supposed to record whatever someone brings in. So, but I couldn't sit idly by and watch this happen. So we did need some additional tools. Well, we got those bills passed in Springfield, so we have these additional tools, and we're making lots of progress.
So, Tim, as the Director of Security, I mean, what role do you play in this? How are you watching out for these fraudulent events?
Well, we're trying to identify and deter the sovereigns from coming into the office.
And the sovereigns, who are
Sovereign
the sovereigns?
citizens is a group of citizens who feel that they don't respect government and government operates illegally. But let me make a point clear that not all sovereign citizens commit fraud, but there are a certain group that do. And they come into our office and they file bogus documents, and it defrauds the public.
So what claim do they make as sovereigns? What they feel that they're not governed by the rules of the United States or Illinois or Cook County? Is that, I assume that's when you say they don't respect government, that's what they feel?
Yes, many of them will try to make claims or seize a property, and they'll do it by filing fraudulent documents within the recorder's office. And they'll commit acts such as clouding a title to make it appear that property belongs to them or someone related to them. And so by the time the police get involved, it's literally too late. And unfortunately, many police officers aren't real versed in what sovereign citizens do or what fraudsters do.
But they've committed a crime of fraud, right? I mean, why do the police not have power there?
Well, for law enforcement, this is somewhat a new type of event, and many law enforcement officers aren't real versed in how to deal with sovereign citizens. Case in point, I served 28 years in a local police department.
I should tell our audience you, in fact, were the chief of police in Maywood for several years as well.
That's
right?
correct. For the last few years, I was chief of police. And once I retired, I came over to the recorder's office. And Recorder Yarbrough asked me, hey, tell me, what do you know about sovereign citizens? And I was embarrassed that, being in law enforcement for 28 years, I had no idea what sovereign citizens were.
It hadn't crossed your radar yet, right?
No, it had not.
So, yeah, I think there's actually a certain irony here that the sovereign citizens who claim not to be controlled by government and have no connection with government, yet they go into a government office and file a claim that the government, accepts, and then they use that as proof that, in fact, they now own this property.
That's ironic, isn't it?
How do they reconcile that? That seems kind of nutty.
Nutty's a good word. But again, everybody that considers themselves a sovereign aren't doing this kind of thing. Let me also say that it's not just them doing this. It can also be a family member. So grandma's in a nursing home and the home is paid for, and she's got a nephew, niece, daughter living with her, knowing full well that she's in a nursing home, and she may go file a fraudulent deed, take it into recorder's office, and it's really blatant and brazen for a person to do what we're talking about anyway, but they do it. It's fraudulent. The problem here is you don't know that it's happened, and people don't check their chain of title. So when I talk about that, I mean, we have an open land system, and that's how people know who owns what in the United States.
Because
and
anyone can check with your office to see who owns something.
Yes.
Right? But no one, I mean, the
No
average
one
homeowner
does.
would never think about that.
No,
Right?
no. So just like you check your credit report, we are suggesting to people that they can do it any day of the week. They can do it in the middle of the night, you know, when you're suffering with insomnia. You can check your chain of title. You put your PIN number in. You can go to my website, cookrecorder.com, and you can bring up your chain of title, and you can see. And if there's anything there that you know shouldn't be there, you need to be talking to me.
Now, Tim, coming back to you, when these claims are filed, and I know that the recorder's office really is generally expected to file anything that comes in, or record anything that comes in. I could come in with a napkin, something scrawled on it, and essentially the law says you've got to do something with it. But how do you determine now when somebody comes in, and what are some of the triggers? Why would you think something is fraudulent?
Well, sometimes some of the sovereign citizens come in dressed in the manner that they present themselves. And
not the way you and I are dressed right now,
that's
for
correct.
example. Right?
And it's a giveaway. Sometimes it's the behavior of the person or the nature of the documents. And our frontline staff are trained to recognize some of these traits. And if they feel that a document is suspicious, they will refer it to our fraud unit.
And so, Karen, coming back to you, you passed legislation, as you mentioned earlier at the show. What does that legislation now allow you to do that you couldn't do before when you see these kinds of potentially fraudulent transactions?
Well, the average recorder's office would just record it. And if you clouded the title, oh well. You know, then what you saw Stephanie Neely talking about, once you find it out, then you have to hire an attorney and have that attorney get your title unclouded. Well, of course, that costs money. Well, we set up a process. These bills that we passed, what we needed is to be able to refer it. Refer that when we see it, when it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, we figure it's a duck. And our frontline staff, as Tim mentioned, they are now trained to see. They've been seeing it all the time, but because they kind of aimlessly just record, we're not doing that anymore. People on they're looking for these things. And as Tim said, they come in sometimes and they give themselves away and they see them. We have a fraud unit on the first floor now. It was on the second floor when I first came in the office.
And the first floor is where the customers are.
That's right. All the customers are there. The fraud unit is there. So if someone even thinks that something like this has happened to them, they can go to our fraud unit. They can come right in. We look it up. We work with law enforcement. We work with the FBI, the police department. Everybody knows we're at attention. We're paying attention, and we want to help. And I'm really interested in the homeowner. Big business, they have their attorneys, and they can take care of themselves. But the homeowner, why they're victimized over and over again with something like this. I mean, you want quiet enjoyment, I think the Constitution talks a little bit about that. And, the last thing you think about, you pay your taxes, you pay your note, you own your home, after you pay your mortgage off, and then you have to deal with this. Well, it shouldn't be that way. So we're suggesting that people check their chain of title on a regular basis. If they see something that looks strange, and maybe, obviously your chain of title shouldn't have my name on it, or Tim's name on it. You need to be calling the office to find out, well, why is Tim's name on your chain of title?
Ms. Yarbrough, your director of security is on my chain of title.
Yes, that's
What's
a problem.
he doing there?
I mean, I found when I check my chain of title, I obviously check it more often these days, but a $143,000 mortgage on my chain of title. Now, it was a mistake, but it was on my chain of title, and I needed to get that off. I mean, what if I passed away? My family didn't know what this $143,000 was, and maybe they would pay it. I don't know. But, land is here forever. But we're not. And we tend to, want to pass our land forward or, whatever, assets we have. The last thing you need is a situation to happen where you have to unwind something and it's not your fault at all. You've been victimized. You have to pay money to get out of this thing. And so these bills help us to refer. We refer to an administrative law judge. They make the determination. This is fraudulent, you know, and as you said, somebody can come in with a napkin and we're supposed to file it. I mean, it has to meet some guidelines.
Some standards, right.
However, now it's sent to them. They make the determination, and then they send it back to us. We put something on the chain of title saying that that document was fraudulent. So that if you wanted to refinance your mortgage, or if you wanted to sell your home, this would keep you from doing that. Your title would be clouded.
So, Tim, coming back to you, someone walks in and they're dressed in a way that makes you suspicious of them. What happens? It comes back to the fraud unit. What does the fraud unit do? I mean, you can't, the administrative judge is someone somewhere else. I mean, you can't just call them up right now and say, what do we do? So how do you, what's the mechanics of handling that?
Well, going before that, when they come to file a document, the frontline staff has to determine that something's wrong with that document. And they're trained to notice that. If nothing's wrong with the document, they'll record it. If something is wrong with the document or they suspect something is wrong, then they will speak with their supervisor and refer that to the fraud unit. Upon determining that something is wrong with that document, it will still be recorded, but it will be red flagged for further process.
And what kind of interaction happens with the customer who's standing at the counter then, the person who you suspect might be perpetrating the fraud?
Well, we ask that our frontline staff be courteous and polite, and their job is to record.
So the person wouldn't be detained or wouldn't be challenged at the counter, right?
Absolutely not. They'd be allowed to fulfill their business and be on their way, provided that the documents were legitimate, and if they weren't legitimate, they would still be allowed to record, but those documents would be flagged.
So what then, if say it goes to the administrative judge, so what happens at that, first of all, I assume that's not the same day, that's some period later. What's that process? What happens then once the judge says
I want to bring the fraud unit into this. When we have a situation like that, sometimes people have been given bad information. So their home is in foreclosure. And somebody has told them, look, all you have to do, if you file this document, this will get rid of the foreclosure, which is not true.
Right.
And so people are desperate. They don't know what to do. Someone has told them this. They come in and they want to cloud their own title. Well, if our frontline staff sees something, and this is not a sovereign, this is just somebody wanting to get out from underneath of a situation. So they are referred to our fraud unit. And so they would take them over to the fraud unit, and the fraud unit, we have an investigator and another person, and they see these things every day. And they would sit down with the person and ask them, well, what is this and what are you trying to do? And of course,
so the customer themselves would actually be taken over to the fraud unit.
Yes.
Okay.
And they will tell them, well, you know, we do have a law in the books that if you cloud, you know, the title, that it's a felony. And that was one of the laws that we had passed. Nobody wants a felony. I mean, nobody wants to go to jail. Nobody wants to be bothered with law enforcement. Sorry, Tim, but nobody wants to have that. But people are desperate. So, you know, they try to get out from underneath of this. We have had plenty of times where that has happened and the person said, you know what, I don't want any trouble. And they get up and walk out.
And at that point, since there's been no fraud committed,
it's okay.
You just let them go.
Now, the other thing is once we decide that something looks fishy with something, and let's say we got person is gone, then we refer that, our fraud unit, the document is referred to them. They review it, then that is referred to the administrative law judge. They make a determination at that point. And you're right, it doesn't happen the same day. You know, it may take a couple of weeks. But guess what? The person who this fraud has been perpetrated upon is not going to have to hire an attorney.
So what?
Attorneys cost money.
But at that point, so the administrative judge makes a ruling and says, well, this transaction really is fraudulent. We should not allow it to go forward. So they come back to you and you've already recorded, so you reverse the recording.
No, we don't reverse it. What we do is we put something on the chain of title that refers to that, saying that this, the verbiage below this is fraudulent. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so then, does the administrative judge then call in law enforcement to try to track down the people
Oh,
who
yeah.
perpetrated the fraud?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, sure. We had one situation out on the south side of Chicago where a woman was actually watching somebody changing the locks on her door. She called the police. The police came, and now this was a scammer. He showed that he owned the property, but it was a fraudulent document. And it goes back to Tim's point about law enforcement. They really don't know.
They're not trained
No,
yet how
they're
to
not.
deal with this.
No, they're not. And so when this officer saw it, he just thought, look, ma'am, you're wrong. He's right. Usually when you get caught doing something, people run away. They don't run away. They're like, hey, I got a document. I own this place. She's got to get out. I'm changing the locks on the door. Well, that lady had some other interactions with our office, and she called our office. And, we talked to the police officer, and he's like, well, it looks right to me. We didn't know. And it wasn't until, I guess, maybe a week or so later.
That's correct.
We were able to, that guy went to jail, okay? Bottom line, he went to jail.
I'm glad to hear that.
But she was 80-some years old. That's awful.
Well, I mean, and to her credit, she had the wherewithal and, fortunately, the knowledge and the resources to be able to fight it. You can easily imagine some 80-year-old who would just give up or wouldn't know what to do.
And we've run across lots of people like that. They're bewildered. They don't understand how this can happen. And all they know to do is what? You call the police. So you call the police and you tell them, somebody stole my house. Yeah, right, and hang up, right?
Yeah,
But it happens.
So, Tim, what do we have to do with law enforcement? And is the recorder's office doing something to work with law enforcement to get better awareness and more training on this subject?
Yes, the recorder's office they are conducting outreaches. They're going throughout different communities throughout Cook County, and they're giving education to citizens.
When we say they, I guess that's you mostly,
We are.
right?
And we're also prepared to start interfacing with law enforcement so that we can better instruct them and to be a resource for them when they encounter these type of problems.
So what's an example? Take this case that the recorder just mentioned of the 80-year-old woman who sees the locks being changed. I mean, what kind of advice would you give police when you go out and train them now on a situation like that?
Well, generally what we all know is that when police officers run up on a problem that they're not quite familiar with, such as the sovereign citizen or fraud issue, generally what you'll hear come from their mouths is that this is a civil matter and there's nothing that we can do, especially when you have a situation where they have documentation that looks real.
Right.
So, we're trying to talk to law enforcement and explain to them what this issue is about so that they have more knowledge and they can be proactive in the field.
So, coming again to this example, what could you tell an officer, say, okay, if you were in this situation that the recorder just described, what could you do differently than you did, than what actually happened?
Well, if you don't know, ask someone. Officers have supervisors, and there's a good chance that someone within their chain knows something about sovereign citizens or fraud of this type, and they may actually have access to resources to fight it.
So if you were confronted and you were on your front door and someone, or even some of the things we saw in the video where the couple comes back from several months in Arizona and finds that someone else is living there, I would imagine, though, that the officer is still constrained. I mean, the officer can't on the spot say, well, you're out and you're in. I mean, at some point they have to refer that back to the courts, right?
Well, before they do that, they will confer with their supervisors. And again, I think that the supervisors would have access to someone who would know more about this issue. And the recorder's office is available.
Kevin, we did have a training. We had a gentleman that come in from Ohio that's the foremost authority on sovereigns, and he was absolutely outstanding. And we invited law enforcement in, the FBI, anybody who wanted to participate so that they could know more about this. We explained what the problem was in our office, but this gentleman, his name was Mr. Pitcavage, he knows about these sovereigns, and it was outstanding, the presentation. We probably will duplicate that this year because every single person that I spoke to afterwards said that they didn't know anything about this. Now, we were talking to judges, administrative judges, we were talking to the FBI, we were talking, now some of the FBI guys did, yeah, but sheriffs, law enforcement, but many of them did not know. And I got to think, Tim, that many of them do know as a result of that training that we did, because people came from all over. And with Tim's background in law enforcement, he reached out to a lot of the suburban police departments, and they came. So I think we've raised the bar. I think we've heightened the awareness about this problem, and we certainly want to be a part of the solution for.
Do we think, well, I would imagine that this is probably a nationwide problem, right? It's not just unique to Cook County.
No,
right? You see this everywhere.
Nationwide, absolutely.
Are we on the forefront of trying to deal with this?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Tim went to a training. He's doing these trainings now on this problem in other states, and we've been asked to come to other states to talk about what we're doing in Cook County. So the Cook County Recorder's Office is the second largest recorder's office in the United States to LA. LA is number one. So what we've done pretty much with the Property Fraud Alert is to put it on the map, both in Illinois and across the country, that we have to try to help people dealing with this problem. But you know, with all the foreclosures, the land theft, the mortgage fraud, all of these things, they all fit into this. I mean, it's the perfect storm. It was the perfect storm in 2008 when the you know the real estate market went bust and people losing their homes and all. So this is perfect. There's chaos, and you know, scammers operate
they thrive
very
on chaos.
Yes, they do. They work very well in chaos, and we're just demystifying this thing. I think one of our director of communications, John Merkovic, often says now, he said, I think that we're a victim of our own success because we're not getting as many of these as we used to get when we first got it. It is good news. But we have to be vigilant. I mean, if we can, if we extinguish it over here, it'll come up over there somewhere. So,
do you think that actually it might be moving to other counties, collar counties, that may not be as well set up as Cook County is?
Well, many of the other counties have employed the fraud alert system. They have, and we have done workshops even to them. Being the second largest county, we need to be doing something that addresses, I mean, there are 5.3 million people in Cook County. Now, every one of them does not own a home, but many of them do, and we want to protect those citizens.
So, Tim, what are the kinds of things that an individual can do now, other than signing up for fraud alert, which we know should happen, if they're confronted with a situation like this? Should they call the police, or should they call a lawyer? How do they deal with it?
They absolutely should call the police. And if they're confronted with a situation where the police says it's a civil matter, I think they should just follow it up. Police officers have supervisors. Everybody has someone that they answer to, and that you know will eventually know about this problem. So I think that any victim or homeowner should be persistent and put this thing on the map.
And they can call the recorder's office, because we have the property fraud office there. The fraud department is there on the first floor at 118 North Clark. People can come there, and we are willing to see them and to help bring their papers, and
Yes.
we're happy to help them with. We know like
and
I
that's
said,
what the fraud unit is there for.
That's
If
exactly
someone
what they're there for.
feels there's a problem, come in and see your office.
Yes.
You'll direct them to the fraud department, and they'll work it through with them, right?
Yeah.
And I think that having seen the video that the city treasurer for the city of Chicago can have this happen, I think that's a fair warning that no matter who you are, no matter how secure you may think you are, it can happen. And I know you mentioned one other thing about someone who had paid off their mortgage, and that's no guarantee that this won't
Not
happen
at all.
either, right?
Not at all.
In fact, it makes it easier. Why would a fraudster want to assume a house with a mortgage current?
Oh yeah, it's a more inviting target, right?
Sure.
So I want to thank you guys for being here. I think this has been an extremely important topic to discuss. Is there any one last word? We have a minute left. Is there some way to sum this up?
cookrecorder.com. Please go to our website and sign up for our Property Fraud Alert program. Check your chain of title. Try checking your chain of title at least on a monthly basis. If it doesn't look right to you, you need to be calling me.
And you and/or Tim will take care of it.
Yes, we will.
Absolutely.
All right. Karen Yarbrough, Recorder of Deeds. Tim Curry, the Director of Security for the Recorder. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us once again on Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. You can find us every Saturday night on Comcast Channel 19 at 8 o'clock. And you can see us on the web at publicperspective.tv. So until next time, thank you and good night.